Hello friends, you might notice that the background behind me is very different, and that is because I have moved and we now have the task together of organising this bookshelf. It is so gorgeous and I'm so excited, and whilst I'm doing that I will be answering some questions that I have gathered from TikTok and Instagram. Also, side note, if you're not following me on those platforms and you want to be part of future events like this, do go follow me there. Before I give you guys this scale of how many boxes of books, I'm bending my knees by the way, which is why I'm doing this weird pose, of how many boxes of books we need to unpack and what the scale of this bookshelf transformation reorganization is going to be. How many boxes of books do you think out of these options are we going to be unpacking today? I'll give you a minute to guess in the comments before I tell you. That's right, for those of you who guessed 7, you would be correct. And let me also just show you how cool this bookshelf is. So now if I move all the way back, this is me for scale. This is the bookshelf. They are so gorgeous and I'm so excited to reorganize them. So I can already hear people being like, this intro is too long. So I'll bring you guys closer and we can get started and answer some questions as well. I am very happy because this first box of books looks mostly like poetry, and for so long I have wanted to have a shelf specifically for my poetry collection, so we're finally fulfilling that dream today, guys. And as I'm taking the books out, I'm aptly going to answer the first question that I got from TikTok, which is, do you have a favorite poem? Better yet, a favorite line or a favorite rhyme? Firstly, love how that question rhymed on its own. Line and rhyme, we love a full rhyme. There we go, poetry. The poetry shelf is, oh, thank you very much for your question. To answer your question, I don't really have a favorite rhyme. I think because a lot of my poems aren't rhyming poems, at least the ones that I write. And my preferred style of poetry is more narrative based rather than rhythm based. Whilst I can like really appreciate like flow poetry and having that rhythm in your poems, it's not something that I can do myself, or at the very least I haven't tried as much. My favourite poem though has got to be by Phil K. I love Phil K. If you don't know, this channel is basically a Phil K fangirl channel. I think him and Sarah K are poets that a lot of poets now sort of started their spoken word journey looking up to, and to be honest, that hasn't stopped for me because I will always love them. And my favourite poem by Phil K is called Beginning, Middle and End, and my favourite line from that poem is, every great story has a beginning, middle and end, not necessarily in that order, and we are all great stories, because it constantly reminds me that there is no one way to do life. In the end, we all have a great story to tell, even if it doesn't happen in the exact order that you think it's meant to happen in, or society has said that it should happen in. Box number 1 is officially empty. Does that mean that this bookshelf has any more structure? No, but we're gonna pull the structure together. To celebrate, let's answer the next question, which is, when checking a book, is the author's background important? It's hard on when you acquire a book to completely know everything about someone, right? And I feel like you have those unfortunate moments where you've acquired a book, like for example with TJ Klune, with like a story that you think is going to be diverse and get representation out there, but then the author turns out later down the line when they're doing PR events or something to have these horrible views. That being said though, I do feel like publishers could probably do more of a background check. But I feel like publishing as such is the, like, you know, if you make the sales, then it doesn't really matter too much, which is the unfortunate truth of capitalism in general, I'd say. And I feel like Yellowface is the perfect example of that. Before I delve into the second half of that question, let me grab out the second box of books. I know, so exciting. Oh, I got it. Strong. Okay, so I think I'm going to change up my game plan slightly and just try and put as many books as possible on the shelf, and then we can try and decide on the arrangement. But I do like this little poetry shelf that I've started. God, speaking of checking an author's background. Yeah, so going back to the question, when I am picking up a book, I think personally, if I pick up a book in the bookstore and I like the premise, my first instinct is not to check the author's background, but I think a lot of readers' instincts aren't either, because we should trust that the publishing companies that are putting out those books have done that research for us, and so we're not making a problematic purchase. But then obviously I feel like a lot of people on Book Talk, if I find out something about the author that they did that's problematic, I'm immediately just like yeeting their book into the bin and never recommending that author to anyone. But on the other hand, the flip side of that is that if I do see an author's name in a bookshop and the name looks like it might be of South Asian descent or like a person of colour, then I'm immediately going to be like, ooh, I want to try and check out what that book is about and actually give it a chance. Oh my god, we've gotten to a very exciting part of the box, which is my copies of Lore Olympus. Now, if you don't know what Lore Olympus is, here is me explaining what it is from a previous video that I was meant to put out, that I couldn't put out. Lore Olympus, if you don't know, is a retelling of the myth of Hades and Persephone that reads more like a modern urban fantasy, because the underworld is portrayed as this kind of big city, and Hades is the head of the corporation that runs the underworld, and Persephone is portrayed as this kind of country girl that then moves to the city. Alongside Hades and Persephone, though, we do get retellings and reimaginings of the stories from Greek mythology that feature other gods and goddesses. So I am very excited to turn this shelf into my Lore Olympus shrine. I just got volumes 3 and 4 as well, and look at that. Move you out. Look at that, oh my god, already looking so gorgeous and so beautiful. I love Lore Olympus so much. Also, I'm unpacking this book that I picked up at London Book Fair this year, and I think we should normalise adults buying kids' books, because I was like, this book is called The Artist, and as an artist, sometimes you just need base level pick-me-ups, like a cute dinosaur drawing around the town. Okay, box 2 is also now pretty much empty, so another A to a Q coming up. So firstly, someone asked, how are you doing? I love you, thank you so much. I am good. I recently did 2 shows with Vault Festival on Saturday and Sunday, and I was hoping I would wake up today with more energy. I don't know why. Who would wake up with more energy after doing 2 shows back to back? So that has been a really tiring process, because there was also a point where, you know, realities of being a small artist, reality of the Poet Diaries. If you haven't seen my series about being a poet, you can check that out. The reality was, I think it was on the Wednesday before the show, and I checked my ticket sales and it said I'd only sold about 3 tickets, which is not great. Not even just for me, but also for the venue, because, and the festival, because you don't want to feel like you've let them down, right? You want to be like, I have a presence that I can bring to the festival, that's why I'm here. But actually, it turned out really great. I think we had 10 or 12 people both days, so that's like 24 people in total, which is insane as a small poet. I'm really sweaty from just picking up the box, but we move. I'm doing okay. How are you guys? Let me know in the comments. Thanks. Oh, it's very cold. We're now having a boba interlude, which is boba from a can, which in my experience obviously doesn't taste as nice, but ironically I did actually pick it up after the show. In the meantime, let's open box number 3. Oh my god, so exciting. I have found the special edition of Clytemnestra that I got with these gorgeous sprayed edges. I'm so excited to have a sprayed edge shelf as well. Oh my god, I completely forgot about that. Also, this has reminded me, I don't know if you can read those stickers on there, but it does say giveaway, because sometimes publishers send me accidentally more than 1 copy of a book, or books I already have, which is of course a great privilege, and I want to share that with you guys. So if you are interested in a giveaway of some poetry, novel in verse, a great book by a celebrated brown author, follow me on BookTok and Bookstagram, because I'm not sure which platform I'm going to do the giveaway on yet. So someone has asked, favourite part of the new flat? Honestly, it's my bookshelf. I don't think anything feels like a home for me now until I have my books out. Although I would have to say the balcony, which is just out there actually, is also one of my favourite parts, because in the hot weather, it's been so nice to just sit there. I finished reading the last few pages of Happy Place on the train as well, and then I came home on the sofa and I just had to sit and contemplate. It's such a good place for contemplating. Also, I've been meditating outside as well. It's been a great time. Okay, so third box of books is officially done. Let's answer another question. And I'm gonna do this while I try this matcha actually. Live matcha test, try test. I don't know what the right word is. I'm scared it's gonna explode. Not near the books actually. Oh, let's taste it. Oh my God. That's so sweet, but it's so good. Oh, I really like this question, which is something you tell your younger self about your future, specifically going into working in publishing as a POC. Ooh, the number of things I would tell myself are quite frankly innumerable. If I had to pick 3 things, I'd say, firstly, it's gonna be way whiter than you expect it to be. Secondly, though, I'd say, don't be afraid to stick your ground. Don't be afraid to speak up. That doesn't necessarily have to do with it being a whiter environment, also just like feel confident in your ideas. And thirdly, I'd probably say, brush up on your Excel skills, because as anyone who works in publishing knows, there's so much Excel, there's so much spreadsheets. Brush up on your spreadsheet skills. And to add to that, if anyone wants to work in publishing, I do have a full video about my journey in publishing and also how I got my job at Penguin Random House. But one thing I probably would also tell myself is that you don't need to stay where you start. I think sometimes there is an expectation in publishing because so many people have been there for like 20 years. Once you get to the higher levels that you're like, am I meant to be here for 20 years? Even if I'm not totally enjoying myself? And the answer is no. You need to look out for yourself. Just because you've got your foot in the door doesn't mean that you can't then move around. In fact, so many people do that, and it's so common in publishing for people to just move between different jobs in order to get promoted as well. Where's the boba?
I'm the trash man.
I can't find the boba pieces. Okay, maybe before I move on to the fourth box, I should try and pull something together here. Oh, and also, this is the other thing no one tells you about publishing. Because you pick up so many boxes of books, your arms get really tired, but you also get surprisingly buff. This is the box that has had a lot of damage to it. She's been on the bottom, she's been forgotten, she's been squashed a bit, just like my energy during this. Since a lot of the questions have been about publishing, I thought I'd show you guys this, which is a spiral bound proof. And it is basically how proofs look in their first run when you've got the manuscript, but it's not, for example, in like this format yet. So usually publicists and marketers will get one of these. And as you can see with mine, I annotated it and wrote all over it so that I could come up with ideas of when I was working in publicity of who to pitch the book to and which outlets would like it, and sort of just really getting into the book and seeing what it was about. Fourth box is done, so you know what that means. Another question. So this next question is quite fun, which is, what part of the writing process do you enjoy most and hate most too? I think the part I hate is actually sitting down to write and just splurging something onto the page, because that's the point, if you know the term free write, when I'm doing a free write where my inner critic kicks in and then they're like, oh, this is awful, how are you ever gonna make this into a poem, or how are you ever gonna make this into a story, because I am writing a novel sort of. And something I used to hate actually was editing. I always used to write a first draft of a poem and be like, bish bosh, that's done. There's absolutely nothing that can be done to improve this poem. I'm amazing. But to be fair, I think it was also more because like I didn't have the tools to know how to edit properly. But editing is actually something that I'm starting to enjoy more and more at the moment, and that is probably because I'm learning how to edit and learning different ways of editing. And something that I got told recently in a workshop was that editing isn't actually separate to the writing process or the creative part of writing. It is part of it. And lately I am seeing that more and more, because especially with poetry, you really need to kind of cut out the fat to get to the core of what you're saying. And once you've found those words that go so beautifully together, you're like, you know what? I've done it. This is it. Now we are on to box number 6? I think it's 6. Who's keeping count? Not me. Oh, this poor book is in so much pain. I need to rescue it. Guys, I'm about to show you a horror story. Brace yourselves. Oh, look at that bend. And my camera battery is about to die. So I'm gonna try and organize more of this bookshelf, come back hopefully with more of a before and after vibe for you guys, and we'll answer the last final questions
eventually.
Hello, so as you can see, the bookshelf behind me is looking a lot more full, and it's not just empty shelves with books falling over, because it is sort of completed. So someone asked, what are the best and worst parts of living in London? And honestly, I'm quite biased. I really love London, but I'm aware that I'm also able to access a lot of the nice parts of London, because I am in a position of privilege. Like, I have a full-time job and also supplementary income from being a poet and from content. But I would still say, even then, the worst parts are how expensive everything is. I feel like that's a given if you're in a big city. And sometimes it can feel a little lonely if you're not actively seeking out community and seeking out your friends, but to be honest, that might also just be a part of being an adult. I'm quite biased though. I do currently really love the part of London that I'm in at the moment, but when I was at my family house in the suburbs, I think when you're in your 20s, there's not a lot to do there. And that's the crazy thing about London, is that because it's so big, depending on where you are, you really can have either experience. And the final question of this Q&A is, what is the weirdest book you've read that has stuck with you for better or worse? It's interesting because I don't think I read many weird books per se. I think more than books, I read a lot of weird poems. Like, I did a whole video where I read some weird poems, and that was so creepy. Like, I think poetry as well really allows you to kind of go to those really dark, creepy parts of your mind, because you can just pull out whatever, and they're like, that's a poem. Like, in that video, there was one poem about a man who was in a library who transformed into a dog, and then I think the library set on fire or something, and that happened in like 3 or 4 paragraphs, 3 or 4 stanzas. It is mad. If you guys have had a weird reading experience, do share it in the comments below as well, because I'm genuinely very curious. So thank you guys so much for coming with me on this massive bookshelf reorganization journey. I feel like if I hadn't filmed it, I definitely wouldn't have done it as quickly, and it's been so lovely to have your company through Q&As. If you would like to participate in any future Q&A videos, do follow me on my book talk and my bookstagram. My voice is going. And if you enjoyed this and you want to hear me chat more about publishing and my journey into publishing, I think you will also like this bookshelf transformation video that I did way back in the day when I was still at my parents' house, but I had just gotten my first publishing job, and I was chatting about how much job hunting sucks, because it does. And as always, I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you over there in the next video. Bye. Having that